Do you ever wonder if apes can speak human language if raised in human society? Perhaps, a chimpanzee experiment from 1931 could help answer that question. In 1927, an article in the American Journal of Psychology highlighted wolf children in India. These two girls were adopted and raised by wild animals, displayed wolf-like habits, such as eating, drinking, and moving on all fours. Then people named them Amala and Kamala and tried to change their behaviors like humans. Finally, Kamala could speak a few words, while Amala continued making grunting noises, persistently howling at night. At that time, most people believed these kids were intellectually subnormal. This is why it was so difficult for them to adapt to a human environment. However, comparative psychologist Winthrop Kellogg questioned it. He thought that because these children lived in a wild environment and were isolated from full education and civilization during a critical development period. To study the influence of nature versus nurture on children, Kellogg and his wife Luella even contemplated abandoning an infant in the forest, hoping a wolf pack would adopt the child and replicate the upbringing of a wolf child. But it's unethical, so what should they do? Finally, they decided to bring an ape into human civilization, raising it as a human, and observing whether its behavior would genuinely resemble that of a human. This chimpanzee baby named Gua. Gua, a female chimpanzee, was born on November 15, 1930 in Havana. In 1931, Winthrop and Luella adopted 7-month-old Gua. This addition meant that their 10-month-old son Donald now had a new sister. They raised Gua in the same manner as Donald. These two babies woke up at the same time every day, fed together, and wore the same diapers, clothes, and little shoes. Everything they did was staying together. As time passed, Gua's learning abilities surpassed those of Donald. She quickly acquired skills such as using a spoon, drinking from a glass, and opening doors. Both Gua and Donald recognized spoken language and commands, but Gua mastered walking upright before Donald. Maybe you think this is just an ordinary day in a typical family. However, Winthrop and Luella treated the two infants as experiments. They intended to run the experiment for 5 years, observing whether Gua could grow up in a human society and communicate like humans. Data from the experiment were meticulously recorded through detailed notes and film. The Kelloggs conducted tests on Donald and Gua for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. The two kids had a strict daily schedule. For the experiment, they placed Gua and Donald in high chairs and offered them spoons to determine their dominant hands. Obstacles were set up to assess how quickly the siblings could navigate around them. In order to test their reactions to loud noises, a gun was fired just inches away from their heads. As the gun was discharged, both youngsters flinched, and Gua sought safety in the arms of one of the scientists. In another experiment, the two kids were spun around at high speed, and the test concluded until Donald burst into tears. Additionally, the Kelloggs tapped Donald and Gua's heads with spoons to discern the differences in the sound of their skulls. As the experiment progressed, infants were monitored for various factors, including blood pressure, memory, body size, reflexes and more. The differences between the two became more apparent. When guests arrived, Donald could recognize people by their faces, while Gua relied on their scent. Gua's preferences differed from Donald's. For example, she disliked perfume and asafoetida, and preferred sour things. Gua was more ticklish than Donald, frequently tickled herself for pleasure. And she was also the first to recognize herself in a mirror, and to show interest in the pictures in a book. Of course, the couple didn't forget to teach her speaking. Even though she learned to respond to 95 phrases, including "show me your nose" and "kiss Donald." But she never learned to speak like a human. Luella attempted to shape Gua's lips to say "dad," but she communicated only through grunts. Meanwhile, Donald could form words. So the couple deemed the experiment a failure. Considering Gua's challenges, Donald's transformation became alarming. Within months, he adopted animal traits, walking on all fours and dragging his knuckles like an ape. He frequently bit people when aggressive, developing a secret bark-like language with Gua. Donald preferred to play with Gua and always avoided other children. The couple was concerned about Donald, plus the unpredictability of Gua with its growth. They ended the experiment in the 9th month. Did they continue a warm family life? The answer is no. Gua returned to captivity, spending her life in a laboratory cage. 2 years later, she died of pneumonia. Donald integrated into society, attended Harvard, and pursued a career as a psychiatrist. However, in the summer of 1972, his parents dead, he also suicided in January 1973 at the age of 43. In 1933, Winthrop and Luella Kellogg published The Ape and the Child, providing a detailed account of their experiment. Throughout the experiment, the chimpanzee initially progressed faster but fell behind intellectually towards the end. Early superiority was attributed to anthropoids maturing earlier. While a monkey reaches puberty around 4 years, humans do so between 12 and 14, with girls usually preceding boys. The couple concluded that the children changed due to the influence of the wild environment. Kellogg claimed that during a critical development period, full education and civilization as human beings were unattainable. At least 98% of the human and chimpanzee genomes are identical. This close genetic similarity comes from both populations branching off from a common ancestor. However, why can't they speak? It's very complex to explain why humans can talk. Scientists have found that the main difference between apes and humans is brain size. For the human brain, there is a language area that controls the activation of muscle nerves, and this area is much larger than that of chimpanzees. The larger this area, the stronger the vocalization ability of primates. Furthermore, after thousands of years of evolution, humans have developed a complete language system, including vocal cords, the flexibility of the tongue, the jaw and others. Therefore, despite the high similarity in DNA between humans and chimps, due to the lack of necessary neural control, chimpanzees are unable to imitate or replicate human language. But what would the sound be like if an ape could speak? Researchers at Princeton University may have found out. They used a macaque's grunt call to simulate the monkey's vocal range. They then created computer-generated audio clips of what the macaque speaking would sound like. Chimpanzee Vicky was close to success. It can voice mama, papa, up and cup. If apes can't speak, are there other ways for them to communicate with humans? Scientists thought of teaching them sign language, and one of the famous is Chantek. Chantek was born at the Yerkes National Primate Research Center in Atlanta, as a male orangutan. Initially, it was planned as an experimental subject. At the time, human anthropologists wanted to understand whether human behavior is primarily innate or learned. Consequently, Chantek was moved to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga for a scientific experiment at the age of 9 months. Similar to Gua, he raised as a human child. Dr. Miles started by dressing young Chantek in diapers and baby clothes. Chantek displayed intelligence, expressing joy by dancing when praised and appearing upset by lowering its head when criticized. Dr. Miles taught him sign language, and within weeks, Chantek could sign words and form basic sentences, expressing phrases like "give me a drink" and "eat food." He developed a vocabulary of about 150 signs and demonstrated an understanding of human speech, even creating his own primitive vocabulary, such as associating head and hat with feeling cold or using tomato and toothpaste to represent ketchup. Chantek also showed talent in painting. Witnessing Chantek's rapid progress, Dr. Miles decided to integrate him directly into human communication, bringing him to the University of Tennessee to attend classes with human students. He became popular on campus, enjoyed lectures, and even appeared in the yearbook. Dr. Miles taught him how to use money, and he developed preferences, spending his allowance on car rides and meals at restaurants. His favorite is Dairy Queen. Chantek also demonstrated a sense of savings consciousness. He diligently performed household cleaning tasks and earned Chantek dollars, but he didn't immediately exchange them for treats. Instead, he stored them in a cup because he intended to exchange them for a tricycle. Chantek's high intelligence amazed everyone and supported the researchers' results. emphasizing the significant role of postnatal training in shaping human behavior. He even showed proficiency in using various tools, including screwdrivers, pliers, and metal cutters. Unfortunately, this idyllic life couldn't last. Chantek became increasingly challenging to control, dismantling fences and roaming the university freely. Some students were frightened, and there were reports of him attacking a woman on campus, although she remained unharmed. As a result, he was confined to a zoo. Due to a dramatic change in his environment, Chantek experienced depression. When Dr. Miles visited him, he expressed hurt in sign language, and when asked where it hurt, he replied feelings. Chantek never fully integrated into ape society, continuing to refer to himself as an orangutan person and his fellows as orange dogs. He often sat alone, communicating through sign language and expressing a desire to leave. Due to legal issues, Chantek couldn't be taken away. On August 7, 2017, Chantek died of heart disease at the age of 39. In the first decades of the 20th century, several similar experiments were conducted to compare the development of humans and non-human animals. Besides Gua and Chantek, there were many other apes, such as Nem, Meshi, and gorilla Coco. In these experiments, if chimpanzees were raised as humans from a young age, they easily perceived themselves as humans. However, their outcomes were quite similar. As they grew older, they became stronger and more aggressive. Consequently, they were ultimately sent to laboratories or zoos to spend the rest of their lives. In the past, researchers often overlooked the fact that animals have emotions. Such as the story of chimpanzee Vanilla in 2023. She had been caged for 28 years, and her expression was filled with excitement and happiness when she saw the sky for the first time. Nowadays, various countries consider the mental and physical well-being, humanitarian spirit, and ethical welfare of animals in their experiments. But coming back to the point, can you accept your pet speaking human language, having human thoughts, and negotiating with you all the time? Furthermore, can they really coexist peacefully with humans, or will it be as depicted in Planet of the Apes? Thank you for watching.